Good morning, everyone, and thank you guys so much for joining today. It looks like the market is still going pretty strong. We have China stocks still popping up, and we have a lot to talk about today. Welcome, everyone. We could see the SPY is, definitely still holding its ground. We're getting really close to that 451 resistance. If we look at some of the China stocks this morning, like Baba, Baidu, and a couple other ones, they are still popping up, which is great to see. And actually, Tom just pointed out to me that we have Peloton exploding this morning. So, that's just another stock to keep in mind. But, Tom, heading into today, I know there's a lot of stocks that are moving in some pretty big ways. So, what are you watching?
Yeah, like you said, Peloton's having a really good morning so far. They're actually exploding. They broke out of that $89 resistance and they're running all the way up to 91.19 right now, and they hit 91.67. So that's looking pretty good. I know that there's just lots of movement today with the China stocks, of course, and I'm still eyeing up a lot of these growth stocks, you could say, like RUN, CHPT, stocks like that. I love the way that they closed yesterday. I think they closed pretty strong, and they still look like they have a lot of potential to maybe continue on this trend for the next couple days.
Awesome. And then we can't forget about those MJ stocks like Tilray. Like, it was popping up yesterday, and I know it's pulling back a little bit right now, but nothing too significant. These stocks, they are pretty hard to trade, but they get in these phases where they just go crazy. So definitely keep your eye on it.
Yeah, and they really like to move with news, and that news yesterday with the California governor kind of legalizing the you could say, like, the cannabis in general. That's a really good news, obviously, for the whole industry, and it's good to see them running, but hopefully they can get another runner today because, like you said, they are kind of pulling back right now. So I really hope that they can get back up there and maybe get that momentum back.
Good stuff. So welcome J-Trade, welcome I'm Fierce, and then I'm Fierce said, good morning, good to be back and watch a live stream. Again, I missed it. So yeah, welcome back, I'm Fierce, it's great to have you. Welcome Vicky, Corbin, Mac, Rick, Kumar, Santiago, and P. Thank you guys so much for joining today. Tom, so Baba's looking pretty good so far. Target's holding up. But how is that new Bitcoin ETF? So I know it's the futures one, but I believe options should be trading on it. I know some people in the Discord were saying that yesterday. And yes, it looks like the options market is actually live on this one.
Yeah, it is. I'm actually seeing some volume coming in. I know it's not on the screen, but the stock itself is actually holding up pretty well. It had a pretty nice pre-market so far, and as we can see, the Bitcoin futures are popping up as well, all the way up to 65,000. So hopefully we see the ETF continue to grow, and I would really just like to see it for Bitcoin in general. It's really going to bring some momentum in, and hopefully this will kind of help the volume here, because I know yesterday, obviously, it was a big day for the for BITO, I should say, the new ETF, but I feel like that it could have had a lot more attention and a lot more hype. So hopefully we start to see it pop off so that we start to really see it get that type of attention that I think people were really looking for.
For sure. So either way, Bitcoin's exploding. This is pretty good news for the ETF. But we have P asking about coins. So this is Coinbase. And I'm actually glad they brought this one up because as we have cryptocurrencies, exploding right now, I'm sure that's bringing in a lot more like trading activity, which should benefit Coin and even Robinhood.
Yeah, it really should. And I think that Coinbase is actually having a pretty nice recovery right here. They bounced off support for a long time and consolidated down here for quite a few months. And I really liked it over the past few days. And like we kind of talked about over the past couple of days, that cash secured put that Hunter called out on Coin was awesome. It worked out perfectly. Coinbase shot right back up after that. And hey, it was just an amazing play. And Coinbase was right at support. So, awesome play for everyone who bought Coinbase down here at the lows. I think that was a really nice pickup.
Awesome. So good to see. We have, let's see, I'm just looking at a couple stocks that are moving up. I know Palantir is creeping up there, which is good to see because they've just been consolidating for so long, but they are green. So what do you think of Palantir, like, given all of this, I don't want to call it a crash, but at the same time, I don't want to call it like an explosive movement up. It's just not really, it hasn't really been doing anything.
Yeah, I like how they had that big move yesterday, like right at market open, and I'm definitely looking for something like that again today. It looks like they definitely have had a bit of a pop back up so far. So hopefully we can see more momentum, kind of like we saw yesterday. I think that would be make for an amazing day with Palantir, but we might not see that. It might consolidate and go down, but hopefully we can get up and maybe pass above $25. That would be an amazing thing, I think. And I honestly like it, Mike. I think it has a lot of momentum from yesterday. I like the way how it closed and kind of held its ground, and it looks like it's holding its ground so far at open. So it looks pretty decent to me, and it's still at it's still at some pretty low levels, relative to the past couple weeks even.
For sure. So awesome to see that. Another stock I was really watching was NEO. I know while the China stocks in general have been exploding up, NEO's been doing good, but not great. But I feel like that even though they're at $40, they're still at a pretty good level for the long term, in my opinion.
Yeah, mine too. I love NEO. They're in that EV sector. And one good thing is that they're in China, where obviously that market's going to be huge. There's lots of, obviously, the China's population is pretty big, so their market is going to be pretty broad. And, they already have lots of vehicles being delivered and, not tons, but they at least they're getting going. So I really like to see that. And I think the NIO, as long as BABA and these other stocks keep doing well, I think NIO has a great shot to keep going up. As long as the China news doesn't affect them, I think that they'll end up doing pretty well in the longer term.
Awesome. So transitioning really quickly over to BABA, it looks like we are definitely seeing people take some profits right at open. It's still up 2%, but we do see a little bit of a sell-off right at open, and honestly, I'm not too surprised. With all of these China stocks, like especially BABA and Baidu, you're going to have to be pretty careful with them, just given that they've been rallying pretty hard for a couple days straight now, or even almost 2 weeks. So we're getting towards the end of like the short-term uptrend. So you just have to keep that in mind, because I know that just because it exploded up yesterday, it doesn't necessarily mean that it'll explode up today. And I really wouldn't be surprised as if we continue up, more and more people will take profits.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's definitely what's going on here today. We can tell that it's definitely having a pretty big pullback here at open. But the good news is it's still up $3 from yesterday's closing price. That gap up this morning on it was pretty nice. So hopefully it just holds its ground here and then maybe goes back up later in the day. But I really like these China stocks right now, Mike. I love how it broke out above $180. But you're right. We're definitely getting on the we're definitely getting close to the end of this uptrend. So definitely be careful over the next few days, but I could possibly see it keep running for maybe maybe like later on today and tomorrow, but I feel like it will stop eventually.
Awesome. All right, so I just want to welcome Mike to the stream. Another stock I have on my watch list, Tom, is, of course, Draftkings. They're in the green as of right now. They tried to run up yesterday, but it didn't really work too much, but either way, they're holding their ground, and I feel like that they're at a pretty awesome level, like even for a short-term trade.
Yeah, me too. And I think that 48 support's been looking pretty good on them. And as long as they hold that, I feel like it could have a pretty nice move back to the upside. I know they had that nice news with Polygon the other day, which seemed like some pretty good news, to be honest. So I really hope that they can get back up there. And it's just, it's just one of those stocks. They've been consolidating down here for a long time. I mean, look on the daily chart. You can just tell how long they've been around this $50 resistance / support. So hopefully we can get up through there eventually.
Good stuff. So looking across the board right now, most stocks are in the green, but how is the market overall doing? Because I know that a lot of times the China stocks and even Draftkings, they don't always move with the market.
Yeah, the market's actually doing pretty well, and it's not necessarily exploding. It's just barely above the highs, the highs of after hours yesterday, but it's moving pretty well overall. And honestly, the S&P 500 and the SPY is kind of approaching all-time highs again. If we go to the 1-year daily, you can see the all-time high here is around 454, and we're getting pretty close. We're at 451.45. So it's honestly we're just on a really nice uptrend right now. We're seeing lots of awesome stocks rising. Obviously, the China stocks are doing well, but even these big chip stocks like AMD, NVIDIA, I know Twitter's doing good. Facebook is doing pretty good today. Apple's been in the green over the past few days. Microsoft has been making new highs. I know that they might be red today, but they've definitely been doing pretty well. Yeah, they're actually green, making new highs again. But we're just having lots of stocks exploding lately, and the market is really liking it, moving back to the upside. And hopefully we continue to just keep breaking out, because I've been loving how we've actually been picking a nice direction. And it's just been a really nice past couple of days for trading.
Good stuff. So we have Pradeep saying thoughts on airline sector stocks. So Tom, what are your thoughts on the airline sector right now?
A lot of them have earnings coming up. I know like American has earnings tomorrow. I know Delta had earnings a few days ago, and then they actually dropped pretty drastically on their earnings. And if that has anything to do with how American or anyone else's earnings are going to go, that's not a good sign. So I don't know. With the way they're breaking support, I'm going to be pretty bearish on them in the short term. And if they have a big drop down on earnings or something like that, I feel like it could be a pretty good pickup. I have a pretty big support on American Airlines down here, right around $18.50. So as we start to approach that, I feel like it'll be pretty good to maybe sell some puts on it or maybe start to grab some shares for the longer term. For the shorter term, I don't really see any play in it, but for the long term, I think it's starting to get to pretty good levels to pick up shares on, or like I said, at least sell puts.
Gotcha. So for me, I just feel like it's not even worth playing. I just feel like it's so uncertain right now with everything going on where it's just kind of like a gamble to me. However, I do like the cruise line sector right now. I feel like the ideal way to play them would be shares or maybe some leap calls, or even a safer route would be to short some puts. But personally, I just like the cruise line sector a little bit more. I feel like they have a little bit more room for recovery, and I've been seeing a lot of smart money also flow into some calls with them. Out of all the cruise line stocks, I like RCL the best, and then CCL for like a short-term trade. But with everything being said, they are also pretty risky. They move in a pretty similar way to the airline stocks. So realistically, if the cruise line stocks move up, the airline stocks will probably move up with it. But we'll see what happens. It's definitely a tough sector to be in right now.
Yeah, it really is, and I think I agree with you. Those cruise lines, I think, have a little bit more room to go back up in the longer term. So I think I like them a little bit better too. But those airlines, you're right. I mean, they have just been so risky lately with everything going on. Like, there's just been news with the Delta variants, news with like these pilots walking out because of the vaccination news, and just all this weird stuff. So definitely lots of weird catalysts going on there. And even the cruise lines have had a little bit of catalyst, but not near as much as those airlines. Man, it's been so tough for them over the past few months.
You know it. All right, we have Vicky asking for levels on Fastly, Tom. So this stock is going to the moon right now. What levels do you have for Fastly?
Yeah, it looks like it broke that $50 resistance. Honestly, I mean, look at this on the 1-year daily. It's really starting to run back up. Honestly, I don't see too many major levels coming up. I see a little bit of resistance here around $52.75 to $53. I think I see some resistance right there on the daily chart. But besides that, I don't see too much resistance all the way up to this $60 area. I feel like that this stock has a lot of momentum right now. And with the way it keeps breaking these resistances, like the $50 resistance, and then yesterday in the middle of the day, the 48 resistance, it's just having such good moves. And it's honestly just the momentum's definitely there. And we can see on the daily chart, whenever this stock starts to run like it has in the past, sometimes it has some awesome multi-day runners. And we're definitely seeing that right now.
Exactly. So it has a ton of momentum, but the smart money was right again, and it's really popping off. So it's great to see that, and I'm excited to see how Fastly does for the rest of the week. Then we have Mike saying, should I be worried about Disney or should I buy more? So looking at Disney, it's definitely been struggling over like the past week or two. Also, it just hasn't been doing anything over the past couple months. Personally, I'm not worried about it. It's more of like a longer term play, and when I say that, like a couple months, like a couple years, it just depends on the setup. For the short term, anything can happen, but like over the next couple months and the next couple years, I'm not too worried about it. In terms of buying more, it really depends on how confident you are in the setup. Like if you're really, really confident, then yeah, it doesn't hurt to buy more. But at the same time, if this is just kind of like every other setup for you, then I would not buy more, because you would only want to do that if you also average up. You know what I mean? Because like let's just say hypothetically you put $1,000 into every play, but on this Disney play, let's say that it's falling, and now you average down, and let's say your total. Now you have $3,000 in the play. If you lose on this one, then it'll be a lot more like bad than like a normal loss would have been.
Yeah, definitely. And looking at Disney here, Mike, I mean, it's definitely having some problems here in the short term, which definitely sucks. But I'm with you. If it starts to go down, I'm definitely going to start averaging in for the longer term, selling puts and stuff like that. I think that'll be awesome to do. And honestly, I think that it's just in such a weird setup right now, especially with the way Disney Plus and everything has had some fairly bad news come out for it lately. So if it breaks this support like at 168.50 to the downside, I'll be pretty scared for it in the short term. But I think it has a pretty good chance of holding this. We've probably touched this like what is it like 7 times over the past couple years, and then it's went right back up. So hopefully it goes back up again. But I'm definitely getting worried about it in the short term. But I definitely have confidence in it over the next couple of years, though.
Yeah, I mean, I like it all in all. You know, they're a great company, great stock, and I'm excited to see what they do like over the next couple months. And I feel like they have a lot of potential to pop back up. But let's give a huge shout out to Bravo for the super chat. So thank you so much, Bravo. He said, "What do you guys think of Corsair? I had to sell it because it broke support, but will buy back." So I like Corsair. I think it's a great company, great stock. I think it has a ton of growth potential. And I like the levels it's at right now. I know it's definitely been struggling over, I guess you could say, the past year, and especially over the past couple weeks. But I feel like it's at a great level, and I like it for shares, especially. I like it for some short puts and maybe even some leap options. And they have earnings pretty soon, so I'm a pretty big fan of them, and I think that they're going to do very well over the next couple years.
Yeah, me too. And thank you so much for that super chat, Bravo. But I think it looks awesome. It's actually turning right back to the upside. And hey, they're actually coming right back up through that $25 support. So maybe that support will end up holding up again in the over the next couple weeks. And I think it looks like a pretty solid play. And I really like it over this holiday season as people start to buy more and more of these electronics and stuff. I think the shares of them are just selling puts will definitely be the way to go. You know, calls over the next couple weeks might be pretty risky, but I feel like that over the longer term, like over the next like 6 months, I feel like it'll have a pretty nice move back.
I feel like you can't go wrong with selling puts on Corsair right now. Like right now, the stock's at $25.50. You know, for November 19th, you can sell a 25 strike put and you can get paid around $115 for that, you know? So you're literally getting paid to potentially buy this stock at $25 a share, and you're getting paid, you know, $115 for that. You know, I feel like that's a pretty awesome deal. Time's on your side. So I feel like that's the ideal way to go. But the downside is, like, if the stock pops up to 30, you miss out on, you know, some potential profits if you just bought the shares. But either way, it's definitely a good ticker. And thank you again so much to Bravo for that super chat. So he was saying, if you like Disney like me, wait for earnings and buy after maybe. Yeah, it could be good. Like, I'm not really too worried about Disney. I know that the short-term movement is kind of rough, but like over the next couple months, personally, I'm not too worried about it. He's in Disney at 173, which is pretty good. It's a pretty good average. It's relatively close to that support, Tom.
Yeah, it really is. And this support at 168 and like 170 has been holding up really well. So 173 is really close to that on the chart, especially given that the stock was at, you know, $200 a couple months ago. So it's a pretty high price stock. So a couple dollars off is definitely not a big deal. And I think that that's a pretty good average price, to be honest. Even if we fall out of the channel, I think it'll still be a pretty good price. And, you know, I still like Disney for the long term. And obviously Disney Plus is not going to just, you know, disappear or anything like that. So for right now, you know, we're seeing Netflix having some amazing moves with this Squid Games news. Imagine whenever whenever Disney Plus finally gets their big show. You know, I know that they had The Mandalorian there for a while and they were really popping off, and I'm sure that they'll get some big show again in the future.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. All right, so we have Bravo saying, I'm surprised also that airlines and cruise lines are dropping big time. You know, we look at Delta, Boeing, UAL, NCLH, RCL, etc. So, yeah, they've really been struggling, and they were looking pretty good towards, like 3 weeks ago or something like that, but they just totally reversed, and I feel like it caught a lot of people by surprise because they were trending really well. I guess you could say the airlines' earnings just kind of killed the momentum.
Yeah, the earnings killed the momentum, and then there was lots of bad news with like shortages. Remember, I think a few weeks ago there was like lots of bad news with like Southwest had to delay a bunch of flights and stuff, and it just really made like for a I guess you could say like bad sentiment came into the airlines, and it really started like a big string of problems because there was those cancellations, and then there was like people quitting their jobs. There was like lots of weird stuff going on. So it's just a very strange sector that moves a lot off of the news. And who knows, maybe the news will get better over the next couple months, but for right now, it's just definitely been moving pretty negatively off of those like staffing shortages and stuff.
You know it. All right, so we have Kathy saying, what do you think levels are for Lucid? So LCID, this stock is doing pretty good today. What levels do you have for us?
Yeah, I like it. And looking at the daily levels, I see a pretty big resistance up here around $28. We're actually about $3 away from that. But over the past couple days, if we look at like the 5-day, 15-minute, there's definitely a pretty big resistance up here, right around 25.65 or 25.66, which it pretty much had a triple top up there on the intraday chart yesterday morning. So definitely look at 25.66 as an upper resistance. And then there's a pretty good support down here at 24.50. So as far as an intraday kind of like range goes, 24.50 seems like a pretty good bottom level. And then 25.60 seems like a pretty good upper level. And I'll kind of draw the channel here right now, but I feel like if it breaks out of this channel one way or the other, it'll have a pretty good move.
Awesome. All right, so we have Bravo saying, would Corsair drop to 22? Honestly, I don't see it, but with the way it's been trending, of course it's possible, but I really don't see it. What about you?
Yeah, I don't see it going down to 22. Maybe we might retest like this 24 support or something like that, but I don't know. I don't see $22. I see maybe what they're talking about on the daily chart here, how there was a little bit of support down there around 22. So I could maybe see it, but hopefully we just recover from here and start to go back up. That would obviously be best case scenario. Hopefully the 25 support holds up since we crossed back above that. And, we do have earnings coming up. So if the earnings don't go too well, then I think it could definitely hit 22, but it's going to really depend, I think, on how these earnings end up.
Yeah, I mean, it would suck if it did hit 22, so I don't see it, so I'm going to stick with it. But of course, anything can happen with earnings. But then we have Bravo asking if we saw Alta, and I did actually. So ULTA, this stock tanked yesterday. And to be honest, I was looking at the chart, but I didn't look into the news too much. So I'm not fully caught up on the situation, but it definitely took a beating. But when you look at the chart, like I know that it had a horrible day yesterday, but in the grand scheme of things, like it's still pretty high, like it only lost like what, a week or two worth of upwards movement.
Yeah, it was only about, like it's about 10 trading days, you could say, of movement. And it's only like it's honestly right back on support. So it's not too bad, but definitely a pretty bad drop though.
Yep. Yeah. And then Bravo said that he read an article that Corsair earnings could be bad. So yes, I saw that they like came out with some news yesterday saying that they basically had a bad outlook. But the thing is, I think it might already be priced in because like the stock tanked big time last week, and the company said that they're not going to have as good numbers as they were originally expecting, and I feel like it's already priced in. Like if we look at Netflix right now, they reported some pretty good earnings and their stock's down 2.5%. And I would say that it was already priced in. I feel like everyone was already pricing in, the Squid Game hype. And I think the stock was already running up in anticipation of these good earnings. Like you look at the EPS for Netflix, they had 3.19 when they were only expecting 2.56. I know that's just one tiny data point of the entire earnings release, but still they had some pretty good earnings, and right now the stock's down over 2%.
Yeah, definitely. And earnings a lot of the times just I've seen it like the movement likes to go against almost like what the majority's thinking. And I would not be surprised if Corsair had a bit of a move back up either. I know that we've seen lots of stocks like AMD, for example, doing very well over the past couple weeks, even though there's been a lot of like chip shortage problems and stuff like that. And I know that Corsair has a lot to do with like chips and stuff like that as well. And I know that they use a lot of them anyways. So it's definitely going to be a pretty strange earnings for them. And it's going to be a tough one. It's very hard to say because of all the chip shortages and stuff, but I would say it definitely has a good shot to maybe hold its ground and go back up, but it's just so 50-50. And like Mike said, a lot of times, like if a lot of people are expecting this to fly down, a lot of times it might reverse and just go back up just because of the weird way that the market moves based on like buy the rumor, sell the news type of stuff.
Alrighty. So let's see. We have Iranical saying, I'm down $10 on MU. Do you think it is time to average down? Thank you. So, I don't know your average price. You said you're down $10, but like you could have 10 shares and you're down $1 per share each, or you could have one share and be down $10 per share. So I'm not really sure on what your average price is, but it doesn't hurt to average down. It's just hard to like say anything without knowing the rest of the information. But it's not at a bad level. They do have earnings coming up in, I guess we could say, a couple months or so. So it's decent. Personally, it's not my favorite setup in the world. But Tom, I know you follow these chip stocks a lot more than I do.
Yeah, and I'm actually really starting to eye these guys up for some longer term plays. And in the short term, I'm really looking at them pretty hard. There's a big support here around $65. And with the way these chip stocks have been moving, I honestly would not be surprised if over the next like couple of weeks to couple months, this ended up breaking this support and maybe falling back down to maybe the $60 support or somewhere like that. But I would also not be surprised if it ended up recovering. It's just, there's lots of weird stuff going on with all the shortages, delays, and, everything like that. But I think it's a good time to maybe start averaging in right here. I definitely wouldn't go all in yet though, but I feel like over the next like couple years, this is at a great price point right now. You're getting it at a great discount, and these stocks are definitely not going anywhere in the future. So I think it's a great pickup for shares at these levels, but that would be about the only thing I did was just get shares or just sell some puts. And even at that, I wouldn't go all in right now. Like, let's say I wanted to put $10,000 into this total. I would only start with maybe 3,000 or 2,000 right here.
Good stuff. So Bravo said that he thinks MU is sitting at a good level, but it's a bad stock, at least for the short term. And then he sold his shares at $73 to like $74. So that was definitely a good move there. Honestly, I don't really follow the chip stock, like the chip sector too much. Like obviously, like I watch all the stocks, but I don't follow like their fundamentals too much. Like I said, Tom knows a lot more than I do when it comes to these stocks. But I do know that Nvidia is like considered the powerhouse. So, personally speaking, I would rather scoop up Nvidia, but again, at these prices, it's hard to buy in now. So honestly, I've just been sitting on the sidelines with a lot of these stocks like MU, Nvidia, AMD, Qualcomm, and Intel, and I'm just waiting to see like Nvidia dip down. And I know that they just keep running up, and I'll probably end up selling some puts, but I just know that while stocks like MU and even Qualcomm are struggling, Nvidia is going to the moon.
Yeah, and keep in mind that Nvidia and those other stocks, they actually like as far as the chips go, like they're just like totally different. Like Nvidia does like the graphics cards, which are used a lot for like AI and stuff, which is honestly a lot better. That's probably why they're doing extremely well. And AMD also does the same stuff Nvidia does, which is probably why those two stocks are doing so well. And honestly, like you said, those ones are the ones you're probably going to want to get as they dip down. Like AMD off that $100 support was awesome. I know Nvidia was touching $200, which was an amazing level to buy there. And whenever you see a big dip on these, definitely look at these ones too. But I feel like any of them are good for the long term, but these ones are definitely the powerhouses, like Mike said. And the cool thing is that these graphics cards are used a lot for AI and different stuff like that, and content creation, which is obviously really big for the future. And I know AI has been pretty big, and hopefully, I know Nvidia has been like the king of AI lately. So hopefully they just keep ruling that sector.
Awesome. So we have Bravo saying, Mike and Tom, I bought UUP yesterday. What do you think about storing your cash into USD instead of cash? So we'll first look at UUP. So looking at UUP, let me pull it up really quickly. So this is the dollar index ETF. It's definitely been uptrending, which is good. It's not a bad play, but I'll tell you, like when it comes to like the dollar and inflation and everything, more than anything else, I've really been looking at like TLT put options and things like that. Basically, this will tank when rates rise, and I know we already have the Feds talking about the tapering, so that should bring rates up, and at the same time, inflation is going through the roof. Whether you think inflation will be transitory or you don't, inflation is popping off in a pretty big way right now, and it's kind of lingering around. So Out of like all of these related plays, I like TLT puts the best. I have UUP on my radar. I didn't make any moves yet, but TLT is definitely my favorite. And then in terms of storing cash into USD, honestly, I just like to have my cash like cash. The main reason is like opportunity cost. Like, if I ever see a great deal, like if a stock tanks down or whatever, and I want to sell some puts now, I just like to have, the cash ready to go. And, it just, honestly, it's what works best for me, knowing that if an opportunity does arise, I can strike on it pretty quickly. So that's just my opinion. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong, but I figured I'd share it.
Yeah, and if you really like the dollar market and the gold market and stuff like that, I know that futures can be a really cool way to go for trading stuff like that. But I know that like these stocks like UUP, it can be pretty good, if the dollar starts to go up. And I personally believe that over the next like couple of years that the dollar might start to rise. In the short term, it looks like it is kind of falling off though. Definitely bounced off that resistance here around like 94.75. So definitely coming down in the short term though. It's really hard to trade the dollar, the gold sector, and everything like that, especially with the way inflation is. But like Mike said, TLT will probably be the better way to go. And I know Michael Burry's gotten some flack lately, but his TLT play has been pretty good.
For sure. Yeah, and then we have Mike saying, thanks again for the great advice. Great job as always. So thank you so much for joining, Mike. We appreciate all of your comments. But yeah, looking across the board, Tom, we have a lot of things moving. China stocks are popping back up. Lots of growth plays at great levels. Like Corsair is now up 1.5% on the day. And we're seeing a lot of the China stocks slowly go down, which is very interesting. Like Babo is up over 2% at open, and we're just seeing people take profits. So that's very interesting to see across the board. Most stocks are green still. Obviously, we like to see that. The SPY itself is still in the green and it's holding its ground. The Bitcoin ETF is doing pretty good. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, look at this thing popping off. This is up 3% today, moving very well. I wonder how Bitcoin itself, look at Bitcoin itself up to 65,000. Oh, up to 66K. We hit 66,000 on Bitcoin a few minutes ago. So that's awesome to see. The Bitcoin ETF is doing great. Let's check out the Bitcoin futures. The Bitcoin futures hit 66,745. So look at that. This is honestly some pretty explosive movement out of Bitcoin. It's really liking the ETF coming onto the market. And I feel like it's just good to see Bitcoin getting more implemented overall, which is just bullish for Bitcoin. And I love the way the ETF's been moving. I wonder if anyone's been playing it. Definitely let us know in the chat if you guys have been playing any of the new options maybe on the ETF, or if you've just been playing shares. It'd be very interesting to know. And it's a very nice setup right now. It's definitely running, and hopefully Bitcoin keeps going just so the ETF can keep going up here in the short term and maybe start off on the right foot here. We saw lots of things like Coinbase actually start off on the wrong foot. We can see if we go to Coinbase's max daily chart, whenever they IPO'd, they ran up and then tanked off for the next couple months. So hopefully we start to see Bitcoin rise here, unlike we saw whenever Coinbase IPO'd and Bitcoin unfortunately went down for a couple months.
There we go. So, I think it's very interesting looking at this ETF and then looking at the price of Bitcoin. It's great to see. I'm a fan of Bitcoin and Ethereum for the long term especially, but even over the next couple months. So that's awesome to see. And in terms of the Bitcoin ETF, while I wouldn't hold it for the long term for a variety of reasons, I would definitely sell some puts on this Bitcoin ETF. It's up 3.5% today. As we can see, the price of Bitcoin is exploding, and it's making new highs.
Yeah, it really is. And there's been lots of talks lately about Bitcoin hitting 100,000 by the end of the year. And who knows, at this rate, it could possibly happen. We've risen from $30,000 up to 66,000 since August. So that's a pretty awesome thing to see. And hopefully, we keep getting this explosive movement, because this is just awesome news. And, whenever Bitcoin starts to run, it generally has some pretty explosive moves. So hopefully it keeps running up for us. And it's just looking very, very nice. And I really like that ETF. It's looking pretty nice in the short term anyway. So hopefully we keep getting good movement out of it.
There we go. This kind of gives us a way to trade options off of Bitcoin's movement now. You know what I mean? Like, I know that it will not, and it's not even supposed to follow the exact spot movement of Bitcoin. But, like, let's say you're super bullish on Bitcoin, Tom, and you don't want to, have to deal with buying it through Coinbase or whatever, and you want to leverage some of your money. Like, you can now basically play it through options.
Yeah, exactly. And that's going to be a really cool thing to do. And it'll kind of be like playing, it'll be like playing GLD based off of the price of gold. Like it's not always exact, but if gold flies up, GLD is generally going to go up with it. And it's almost it's not the exact, it's not set up the same way as the Bitcoin ETF, but fairly similar, I guess. And it's just a good example. So I really like that. And I think that it'll definitely be awesome for me. I know I'm not a big player in crypto at all. And this will definitely be cool for me. And, I was hoping that would follow more of the exact price of Bitcoin, or, at least like maybe trade crypto itself rather than the futures. But either way, at least it's pretty cool.
Alrighty, so we have Sean saying, thoughts on Verizon. I got the November 19th 53 strike calls about 10 minutes ago, so it looks pretty good. I know that like Verizon and AT&T have been struggling a lot, but I think it looks pretty good. I think it's a smart play. You're in the money, which is always great to see. You have some time, not a ton of time, so you have to be careful with that. IV is pretty low. I like it. Just one thing I'm a little worried about is that time. I know you have, you have around 30 days left, so it looks good, but, I don't know how long you plan on holding for, but if it's for a couple weeks, you just got to be careful with that time decay.
Yeah, definitely. And hopefully these stocks start coming back up over the next few months, just in general, like for the longer term. I know that they've definitely both have been going down a lot, and hopefully Verizon gets right back up there. It probably shook out a lot of investors as it fell and had this big drop. So hopefully we start to get back. And these earnings are honestly doing pretty well and pushing the stock right back after that big drop. Surprisingly, I know lots of people were really looking at those earnings to possibly make them go even lower. But hey, it's always good to see the turnaround. And, hopefully this happens with Corsair, which has been dropping lately.
Alrighty. So looking at everything I think it's very interesting. We've had solar stocks explode up. Like you look at Enphase, it's had an amazing past couple weeks, but it is getting destroyed today. It's down 5%. I know they have earnings pretty soon, but definitely not good to see this type of movement.
Yeah, it's not. And FSLR's down as well. CHPT, let's check how they're doing. Yeah, they're also red. Looks like a lot of these growth stocks that have been flying up for the past few days are definitely having a pretty bad pullback today. So hopefully they can hold support and maybe get back up there. It's definitely looking pretty scary in the short term. So this pullback's pretty significant. Hopefully we can hold that in CHPT's case to support around $20.60 on Enphase. I'm seeing a pretty big support down here around 178. So maybe we'll start to see it bounce pretty soon.
There we go. So another stock I'm looking at, Tom, is UPST, potentially to the downside. It's going to be impossible to catch the top on this one, but hey, it's definitely struggling a little bit. And, we know how this one has just been a powerhouse, and it's slowly breaking those lows.
Yeah, it really is. UPST is not looking good in the short term, unfortunately. I know it's pulling back off that $400 resistance, and it looks like it's posting lower highs. And honestly, look at this. It's actually breaking the 1,000 SMA to the downside after trying to consolidate there earlier this morning. And I would say it looks like a pretty good sell-off starting to come into this one, Mike. And it might be time for puts pretty soon. Honestly, it's starting to look like a pretty good sell-off here. But there is support at 350. We have to be careful of that.
Yeah, we'll see. I think it's going to be very interesting. Either way, I'm definitely going to have my eyes on it. It's just one of those stocks where it's like, no one's going to know the top, but we all know a big pullback's coming. So it's like, it's just kind of like, I don't know, it's going to be tough, but I'll definitely have my eyes on it either way. What are your thoughts on Ford right now? They're kind of breaking out.
Yeah, they're actually having a really nice day to the upside, up 2.56%. Let's look at that 5-minute chart. Yeah, it's actually holding at like $15.40 support very well. And that support's been holding up ever since last Friday. So that's been a nice level for Ford. And hopefully we get up there and pass above $16. I think that would make for a pretty good move. Let's check on General Motors, see if they're kind of popping up as well. And yeah, it looks like they're moving in sympathy again. I know these two stocks love to go up at around the same times. And it's really good to see them both kind of popping off today again. And I know Ford on the daily chart, Mike, is starting to get back up towards, like I said, that $16 resistance. And I'm really curious to see if we'll finally be able to break out above that, or if we might, hit off that and fall back off to the downside. It's going to be definitely a very interesting next couple of days to see what ends up playing out.
Awesome. So Ford's doing good. GM's doing pretty good. It's good to see those stocks also popping up, while at the same time Tesla has been on a crazy uptrend, because I know that they kind of got left in the dust last year. And speaking of Tesla, they report earnings after close today. What are you thinking? What are you thinking with that earnings report, Tom? I know that it is impossible to predict earnings, but what are you thinking?
Man, I mean, with Tesla's been flying up a lot lately. I I would hate to say it's already priced in. I feel like the earnings are going to be pretty good. Honestly, I know that they did very good on their deliveries over the past few weeks. That actually made their stock pop up pretty well on that delivery news. And they've been talking a lot about their new factories and stuff. So I feel like that the earnings are going to go awesome. It's just, to me, is it already priced in? I don't know. It's moved like 100 points over the past like 5 trading days. It's really hard to say for me. I love it. I think that there's a lot of momentum. And I think personally, like, it has a pretty big chance to keep going up, but it's just so hard to play the earnings. But I think I'm leaning more towards, I'm definitely going to be more bullish on it. And I'm definitely leaning more towards the upside. I love those previous deliveries. And I feel like that they're going to have some pretty good news about these factories. And they're definitely going to be talking about the new Tesla truck and stuff like that. So it's going to be a pretty interesting event.
Yeah, so I'm going to disagree with you. And look, earnings are always a 50-50. Who knows what's going to happen with earnings? But I feel like it's already priced in, and I feel like Tesla, even though they're a great company and I love what they're doing, I feel like I just feel like they're already priced in. And I don't necessarily see them tanking down to 500 or anything like that, but I wouldn't be surprised if we, linger around like 840 or 830 or something like that. But again, no one knows what's going to happen with earnings. Let us know what you guys think about this. But either way, it should be an interesting event, and I bet it'll definitely move the stock.
It does something like this.
What'd you say?
I said, I bet it does something like this.
Yeah, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised, because it's not like it's rising, it's not like it's tanking, it's just kind of like doing nothing but falling a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. It's so tough to play those earnings. And even if the earnings go well, like Mike said, it's probably already in. So it's going to be pretty hard for it to continue up, but hopefully it keeps going up. It's going to be really tough. And intraday, there's actually a lot of support here around $860. And I feel like Tesla looks like it's honestly moving pretty red so far today. Like, it's honestly kind of selling off, and I hope it ends up holding the support intraday, but it honestly looks like we might end up breaking this eventually and maybe getting a little bit of pullback right before earnings come out.
Oh, alrighty, so should be interesting across the board. Like I said, stocks are still green. Tom, do you have like any major stocks you're watching today? Like anything that's catching your eye?
One that's actually catching my eye a little bit is Clover. I know that we haven't talked about them in a long time. They almost got taken off of my watch list, but hey, they held the support and they ended up holding up pretty decently. So they're actually moving off of the $8 area right now. They pulled back to it on the intraday chart, and they're kind of bouncing off of that. So maybe we can see a nice bounce back up out of Clover. I know that they've been getting kind of destroyed over the past few months as well. They've been consolidating like a lot of other stocks have. So hopefully they can get back up there. And another one that I've been eyeing up over the past few days has been Pfizer. I know that they've been really consolidating down here at the bottom, and I'm looking for a little bit of a pullback back up, and we're kind of seeing that right now. But they have earnings coming up at the end of this month, and I'd like to see more of a bigger move, maybe up to like $44 or somewhere up towards that.
There we go. So thank you guys so much for watching today's stream. We have a lot of stocks moving. Last minute, Tom, I just want to cover CAT. Some of the value stocks are popping up, like Caterpillar. It's a slow-moving stock, but it's good to see this type of uptrend. Another one is Starbucks. They're trending in the right direction, which is always great to see. Walmart's up there, too. So Definitely don't forget about those ones. Even though they move a little bit slower, you can get some pretty good deals on the options because they're normally pretty cheap. So definitely keep those ones on your radar. But again, thank you guys so much for watching today's stream. And we hope you have an amazing rest of your day.